There's something about Emily. My whole relationship to art and what it could be shifted is what Emily said about the Hans Heck show Germania she witnessed at the Venice Biennale in 1993. I saw Embrace in an image somewhere in a magazine that I had a subscription to in around 2006. My whole relationship to what contemporary Arab art could be shifted when I saw just an image of Emily's work, Embrace. I had no clue who Emily Jacir was. I had no idea that that work could move, but that work was a moment for me.
This conveyor belt is in many respects a kind of analogy for the act of waiting that happens not only for many Palestinians but also for many artists and travelers who live often in exile.
The MAFAK MinRASY is understanding why Embrace matters. I'm going to springboard from a critical piece written in The Observer by Rachel Cook in 2015 about Emily's show at the Whitechapel Gallery in London, where Rachel says the following about Embrace. Elsewhere, Jacir is less disingenuous. Embrace is a circular luggage carousel, the kind you see in airports but magically shrunk, that begins to turn as you approach it. And though the message is obvious, the exile's journey never ends, it's nevertheless effective. I'm going to headline why Cook's piece is destined for the garbage and why you actually know everything about art that a critic does not want you to know.
She's the recipient of prestigious awards, including a Golden Lion at the Venice Biennale, a Prince Claus Award from the Prince Claus Fund in The Hague, the Hugo Boss Prize at the Guggenheim Museum, and most recently, she won an American Academy of Arts and Letters Prize and received an honorary doctorate from the National College of Art and Design in Dublin, Ireland. She's the founding director of Dar Youssef Nasri Jacir for Art and Research in Bethlehem, where she was born.
In her review of Emily Jacir's show Europa of 2015, Rachel writes, take, for instance, the 1998 photograph she calls Untitled Self-Portrait. Jacir often puts herself in her films and installations, but in this instance, her exuberant curls are nowhere to be seen. Rachel's direct target of Emily's hair already sets the tone that this review was going to be from a one-sided, white European perspective, and it gets tangled in the political. Don't touch my hair. In an interview in Sotheby's magazine discussing her book, Emma explains the political significance of hair. The natural hair movement was in large part as a kind of rejection of Eurocentric beauty standards. But what happened often was that they were very much the emergence of like an idealized type of natural hair, which still conforms to Eurocentric norms. Rachel says about the work Untitled Self-Portrait, in her place is a model camel, the kind of tourist tat you could once buy on every corner in Bethlehem. A tourist tat, the three wise men arrived on camels to visit newborn Jesus, and Bethlehem is the place of religious tourism, not tatty tourism. Actually, this makes me think of the greatest clapback on camels. Blogger on all things Kuwait Marks details the story. He wrote, back in October 1981, Kuwait played a World Cup qualifying match in New Zealand. Just before kickoff, some Kiwi fans displayed an offensive banner reading, "Stick to ya Camels," as the Kuwaiti team came onto the field. Kuwait went on to win that match 2-1. The clapback came a couple of months later. The two teams met again, this time in Kuwait. The Kuwaiti Football Association adopted a camel named Heido as its mascot. And just before the game started, they brought out a few camels to parade around the stadium, demonstrating Kuwait's pride in its heritage. Kuwait drew the match and secured qualification for the 1982 World Cup in Spain.
Our camel, lovely camel, our camel, lovely camel.
Rachel goes on and on. She just won't leave the camel alone. Either way, she says, the poor creature is not only displaced, ill at ease now that it's apart from its fellows, alone, it's hobbled too, a condition that may prove to be permanent. But what Rachel fails to elaborate on is how did this camel become displaced? Rachel writes in this review as though Emily, her hair, and her camel only exist within the gallery white walls. See, Rachel makes absolutely no mention about the British relationship to Palestine. It's ironic because in this review, Rachel says, Jacir has imposed what I can only describe as a partial news blackout. Rachel did a total historical blackout. Jeffrey Sachs is going to help us put this show into context in exactly 60 seconds.
All problems in the world go back to the British. That's true in Pakistan, India. That's true in China. That's true throughout the Middle East. That's true here in Cyprus because they were the most powerful empire for 200 years, and they left behind conflicts everywhere. You know, the disaster taking place in Palestine right now, one of the reasons is that between 1915 and 1917, the British promised the same territory to 3 different groups. So first, in the McMahon communications, the British promised it to the Arabs. You fight with us against the Turks, it's yours. Then they negotiated the Sykes-Picot Treaty to say to the French, it's yours. Then in the Balfour Declaration in 1917, they said it's a Jewish homeland. So the British promised 3 times land that wasn't even theirs. And they got a lot of nerve as far as I'm concerned. And now you need to disentangle all of this. But this is where the problems originate.
Rachel says too much of what she does requires wordy explanation before it can be even half understood. Sometimes, too, her output, partisan and highly political, is closer to activism, even to journalism, than it is to art. It would work better in the pages of a book than in a gallery whose vast white spaces it struggles to fully inhabit. This implies 3 things that contemporary art can do. It can stand alone, it can give you space to relate to the work rather than attacking you, and it can be political, it can be a site of activism. But what Rachel doesn't want to tell you when she describes Embrace, for example, is that the output or the work needs to be relevant to the artist. See, those words magically shrunk that she uses for Embrace when she says, a carousel, the kind you see in airports, but magically shrunk. Well, the stroke of brilliance in this work is that it's not magically shrunk, it's actually made to measure. Emily and the diameter of Embrace are the same. So now that we know this detail, the word magically shrunk seems like a snide remark. And in fact, rather than this being disingenuous, it's just genius. In the New York Times Art in Review for the exhibition Made in Palestine, which was reviewed by Holland Cotter, Cotter eloquently defines what Emily does. She says, Emily Jacir, a young artist of Palestinian descent, who well understands that political art is what it is, concrete in subject, but potentially subtle in execution and meaning. So when Rachel says this requires wordy explanation and would work better in the pages of a book than in a gallery, Tina fleshes out Palestinian contemporary practice as the different ways Palestinians explore the representation of their identity through the imaging of place, whether through representations of the everyday or the use of materials drawn from the landscape, or via the documentation of borders, movement, and the contemporary landscape. Kalin sums it up that successful exhibitions generate substantial books. In November 2014, the largest survey of Jacir's work to date opened at the Jordanian Arts Foundation, Darat el-Funun, which went some distance in establishing the fullness of her oeuvre by including a number of works from the 1990s, some of which had been rarely or never seen before, alongside projects that had been well-traveled in Europe and North America, but had not been so often seen in the region. The show ran for 6 months and generated a substantial book about her work. Let's listen to Suha Shuman describe what is Darat el-Funun.
My statement, we could have easily built a space somewhere modern, but the statement was that art is not luxury. Artists are witness of their time, and then to have a space where the public can come, all kind of people from all walks of life, to be open to the people and to be for the people and by the people, let me put it this way.
It's actually after the opening of this show at Darat al-Funun in Amman in 2014 that I got to ask Emily about Embrace. Soha Shuman hosted a dinner in honor of the artist and the exhibition. Emily was seated directly across from me, and I struck up some small talk like, how are you, and can I chew your gum? But what I really wanted to talk about was Embrace. I loved it when I saw it in 2006. I loved it a decade later. And 20 years on, in 2025, this month, Embrace was at the meet and greet at the exhibition Maknana at Dir'iyya Art Futures in Riyadh. You see, Embrace was visionary, something the critic neither had the vision for nor the appetite to situate in its proper historical context, nor in its artistic heavy lifting. In Maknana, the curators demonstrate how Arab artists have mobilized technology as both a tool of production and a means of rewriting dominant narratives. So, how to make art that is meaningful. Co-curators Ala and Haytham in the catalog of the exhibition write, designed to continuously loop upon itself, her conveyor belt symbolizes a perpetual state of movement restricted to a defined and closed path. While the work involves motion, its effect is stagnation. Why was Embrace included in this show? Because, as Alat told me, it marked a contemporary approach to its artistic expression. It's precisely this that made Emily relevant to me. The use of non-traditional materials, so it's not a painting, it's not a bronze sculpture. This is what captured my attention. This magically shrunk conveyor belt could only be made by someone whose artistic practice is so thorough, crossing the personal and the public. Emily had a wand to do this, and it's her craft. The point I'm trying to drive here is contemporary Arab art can only be maximally understood by the indigenous to the land, to the culture, to the religions, to the ethnicities. Let me bring it to you in another context. Hummus. Yeah, hummus. So I did my master's in art and public policy at Tisch School of Arts in 2019-2022 in New York. The first time I came across somebody eating hummus, I'm the one that had the culture shock. Eating hummus has a very particular set of hand gestures that are intuitive, but what I saw was people forking it, slathering it, dipping it, doing just about everything but scooping it. The video work you are seeing was in response to my thoughts of how the hand movements used to scoop hummus with a piece of bread is being erased by theft and appropriation. Embrace pulls from the contexts political and poetic. It's concrete, subtle in execution and meaning. It's an exceptional work. It's contemporary art. Forget what the critics said in a national publication. Listen to yourself. If you know about hummus, you know, and if you don't know, you'll keep forking it up. When Jacir lectures about her work in lieu of describing such a piece, such as Embrace, which is exceptional in her oeuvre, not only for having been made with no elements of performance, photography, text, or documentation, but also as one of her most personal and private of her works, she often recites from the poem Athens Airport by the Palestinian poet Mahmoud Darwish, which is included in the collection Unfortunately It Was Paradise Selected Poems.
I can also add to that it was also a relief to me and a breath of fresh air when I read what you wrote when that show was up, because I felt that also that feeling that I was in a conversation with you and that you had understood things in the exhibition. And it was such a pleasure to read your writing.